Before we jump into today's topic, a quick disclaimer. The stories and data we share come from the states that we practice in and the experiences that we personally had, which can differ greatly across our country and certainly the globe. This is not a professional advice show. So let's get comfy and talk about death.
Hello, and welcome to MortMic, a down-to-earth discussion on death and dying. I'm Jem.
And I'm Red, and we are your multifaceted morgue mentors this week. In our day-to-day lives, we have a lot of hats that we wear. Our friend hat, our work hat, the family hat, and the off-the-clock hat. And when we wear those hats, people's interpretations of us change, whether it be due to personal experiences, preconceived notions, ignorance, whatever have you. Different people think different things about you and the roles that you fill.
So today we were hoping to share from our perspective how others perceive us in our professions, from our families to our partners to the strangers on the street. What do people think about their friendly neighborhood death dealers?
So I think an easy way to start would be with our families. So obviously some of the people we spend the most time with. With my family, it's somewhat interesting, little division between them. I'm a first generation funeral director, which means that nobody else in my family is a director. I didn't descend from a long line of funeral directors. I'm the first. And so when I told, I told my mom originally when I was going to college, that I was supposed to be, I wanted to be a medical examiner. And like for my graduation party, she got me a cake and it said my doctor and my government name on it. And I was like growing older and then deciding, I'm going to be a funeral director. That just kind of, I'm sure I disappointed them a little bit after hyping them up to doctor mode.
Dr. Cake mode, apparently.
Yeah, right. It was a good cake at least. It lasted. But past that disappointment, it's always funny going to like family like holidays and gatherings and stuff, because like I have like my one aunt, she is always wanting to talk about my job at the dinner table. She's like asking all sorts of questions that are making my grandparents visually uncomfortable.
Oh no.
They're that age, they're getting there, so I don't think they really want to think about the end yet.
Yeah, that's true. And that's actually pretty uncommon, right? A lot of funeral directors in the industry, especially the older funeral directors, it's a family business. Like their grandpas have been doing it, their dads have been doing it. It's a very male patriarchy family business type of deal. So someone going into it without any experience, without any family background is actually pretty rare, I think.
Yeah, definitely. We're starting to see it pick up a lot more because we're seeing a lot more women get into the field. And of course, without having like parents and stuff that are passing down to son to son to son to Jim Jam the fourth, we have all these ladies coming into it. So a lot more first gens, but definitely a newer thing.
Yeah, I actually am also not from a funeral director family. So both my parents are computer geeks. They are like the OG computer geeks that like got into it right when computers started coming out. My brother has always been kind of like an engineer, kind of mathematician kind of guy. So like literally the black sheep of the family right here. Definitely kind of a shock when I was going to school for music when I was an undergrad, right? So a little bit of a shock when I was like, hey guys, I don't want to be a musician anymore. I want to be a funeral director.
180.
My poor mother, and I'm not trying to throw her under the bus right now. I love her to death. We've come a long way for sure. But I don't think she talked to me for maybe 2 or 3 weeks after I told her.
You got the silent treatment.
I did, because she was one of those family members that was just so aghast. Like, how could you want to do something that's so morbid and so sad every day? And, my dad he's kind of indifferent. My brother's kind of indifferent. They are supportive, but they don't want to like know the dirty details. But I think the thing for my mom that changed her mind was that she saw that I was helping people. She saw that I was like a compassionate person, kind of like taking care of the deceased. And I think that really tended to change her mind. But I can tell you right off the bat, she was like, why is my child doing this? Like, where did I go wrong? Like, kind of
Oh my
thing.
gosh, my child is gonna canoodle with organs. Ah! Definitely.
But other than that, I got really lucky with having like a supportive family. I know that a lot of families are definitely bothered by the idea of like one of their relatives is seeing death every day. Actually, I kind of live this vicariously through my partner. So my partner's family is like, they cannot understand why I do what I do. And that's like the one thing that like makes them a little bit like uncertain about me. I want to say I want to use good words here. But definitely. So, and the funny thing about that is that my partner is actually so interested. They want to hear all the stories. They have all the questions. So when we sit down at the family dinner table at Thanksgiving, they'll turn to me and go, hey, why don't you tell them the story about that dog that ate that lady's leg one time? And I'm like, absolutely not.
I need me a freak like that. I mean that in the most loving way.
I know. I'm like, listen, babe, your family already can't handle me. Like, let's not make it any worse right now.
Right. That's how you get sad at the kids' table.
I know. We need like a special table for morticians and family holidays or something.
Right.
Like that.
So we can talk about all the weird stuff because we can palate it. Like...
But yeah, two very different dynamics there, and I love them both. Like I love both of my families, so it's not anything off my back. Like I know that a lot of people can't handle it, but it is funny to experience those two dynamics for sure.
Right, especially at the same time. So a lot of my past partners, like they weren't as supportive. I guess they weren't actively unsupportive, but it was like disturbing and annoying in a way. Obviously, if I'm getting woke up at 3 a.m. for a death call, they're getting woke up at 3 at night with a death call. So that was always a pain for a lot of the people I was seeing. And I mean, you know how this is. Like, we can literally sit down for a meal and talk shop like it's nobody's business. It doesn't make us sick. Like, if anything, doing like an embalming makes me more hungry, you know? So like, I'm just chit chatting. I'm like, so like this crazy thing happened at work today. Like, the liver fell on the floor, and like, you know, my partner looking across the table at me like slanty eyed, like, can we not do this over dinner like every time?
I know, but we don't have anything else to talk about.
Right, exactly. Everything else is too mundane. Like,
I know. I'll be like texting my partner, like, hey, this crazy thing happened at work today. Like, this guy jumped off the building and his spine shot through his head. And they're like, oh my God. Like,
nice.
Yeah.
I mean, not nice, but you know.
That's like, you know, it's literally just like work talk, except obviously very extreme to someone who's on the outside of it.
Absolutely. Definitely.
And I think, you know, besides like families and, you know, partners and stuff like that, I think that your like friends that you see every day, it's kind of a mixed bag as well. Because I do have friends that tend to like be like, nope, don't want to hear it. No, nope, not interested. But then I also have friends that are like very interested and do like ask a lot of questions. And like, you know, whenever they're like, oh, I have this weird thing on my arm, can you look at this for me? It's like, I'm not a doctor, guys. Like, I look at dead people. Like, I can't help you.
I bet back in the day we would be just nearly doctors. Like, we'd be barber, like Dr. Barber levels.
I know. Yeah, we're like old-timey doctor level.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Yeah, just throw some, I don't know, morphine on it and it'll be fine.
Right, exactly. I really do have my friends. A lot of them have been very supportive, like you're saying. Like half the time, my super weirdo friends are like, "You got any pictures you could show me?" I'm like, no, I do not have pictures to show you.
Yeah,
really
guys, a lot of the times we're not allowed to take pictures for very, very important reasons. Like, we don't want to get sued by these families. So exactly. I do have people that are like, oh, do you have any pictures? I'm like, absolutely not. You know, you see all these people posting on social media, like pictures from the morgue or whatever, but I think they get very permission, and I think that they take out identifiers definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think what I saw, I was following a blog about it once, that it was like indigent cases essentially where there was like no, like literally nobody, and it was like all for like medical reasons, like study purposes essentially. So
Yeah,
it is
educational.
not something that funeral directors and morgue workers and forensic pathologists just have on their phones.
Yeah, so don't worry about that either. Like, no one's taking pictures of your grandma on their cell phone. Like, it's not happening.
Right.
And I think saying that, this episode could easily turn into like weird things that strangers say to me on a daily basis when I tell them I'm a medical examiner assistant.
Definitely.
Like, there's there's the common like, oh, everyone's dying to see you, or like, your job's not going anywhere, or something like this. Like, there's like a list of like 10 jokes that everyone just cycles through whenever I mention my job to them. I'm sure it's the same for funeral directors.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. I've gotten to the point that I make the joke first so they can't make it because I'm tired of hearing it.
Absolutely. I think that goes with one of the most interesting, like, stranger experiences I've had with my job. I was a funeral director student in New York City, right? So me and my roommate went out to an open mic stand-up night. So like an open mic comedy, like in a little bar somewhere in like the middle of nowhere, Brooklyn. And we sat in the front because one of my roommate's friends was performing like a music thing.
I can already feel the cringe mounting.
So, of course, we sit in the front. And, of course, there's a lot of stand-up comedians. And what do stand-up comedians like to do? They like to do crowd work. Of course, one of them one of them points to me and is like, oh, hey, like, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I'm a funeral director. Because, I'm not going to say, like, sit there and explain that I'm a funeral directing student.
Right.
And that's where shit like hits the fan. Like it was like some sort of like, this is like a wet dream for like a stand-up comedian because there's like so much content. But the thing is, there's only so much content. So like there was at least maybe like 10 or 15 stand-up comedians during this open mic night. Every single one of them ran through their mortician jokes. Like it was like the best thing since sliced bread. And it's funny at first, but then after like the sixth guy trying to talk to you about like, dead people erections, it's like it's not funny anymore. Like, I very much regret ever going into this.
Oh my gosh, that sounds literally mortifying. Oh, I did the thing. Sorry. I'm just as bad as them.
Oh, it's okay. It took me a second. I was like repressing it from my memory. But yeah, they ran the gambit. They did the whole, people are dying to see you. Like, they wanted to talk about angel lust, which is when a corpse gets an erection, which actually happens. It's a real thing. But that was like the main topic of discussion that they wanted to talk about. But it was just, I remember sitting there in the front of the audience just being like, kill me now. Like, can I please get out of here?
Some low-hanging fruit too. Like, try to make jokes about something else. Like, I don't know, a clerk at the registrar or something. Like, that's a challenge. Yeah. Take that challenge for jokes instead.
Exactly. So stand-up comedians out there, make sure you kind of like hold back on those mortician jokes. I know it's easy access, but we're people too. Okay. But other than that, I mean, like I said, the strangers, you either get the person that's like, oh, like that's, I could never do that. Like, that's so morbid. How could you ever do that? Or someone who's actually genuinely interested and actually wants to learn about stuff like this, which is kind of why we made this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I get the same responses of like breaking the ice with somebody, like you're out at the bar and just talking and like the first date or whatever it happens to be. And someone's like, oh, so what do you do? And like half the people do like the equivalent of like the upside down smiley emoji face. Like that's what they do. Or the other half are people that are totally like way weirder than me. Like super fascinated what I have to say and want to know more. But then like legitimately there are a few people that are like getting real weird with it and asked me. I straight up had somebody ask me, like, I'm at a thrift store. It's not even a big deal. Like I'm getting like 2 shirts, and this like younger girl asked me as I'm checking out, it's like, what do you do? I'm like, that's really weird conversation to have at a thrift store, but okay, I guess you're not in a hurry. And I tell her, and she's like, so do you like with the bodies. And I'm like, is that
Oh my
is that what we're talking about right
God.
now?
The worst. Guys, inappropriate.
Super
No one
inappropriate.
does that. Disgusting. Like, just because we work with dead bodies every day doesn't mean we like to talk about that kind of stuff. Like, come
Right,
on.
exactly. And that's not really like a thing. Like, okay, like Gacy cuddled one corpse like one time. Like, it's not like all funeral directors are out there doing that kind of thing with dead bodies.
No, and we could have a whole episode on this if we wanted to, but like
Really?
this is like pet peeve number one, a very inappropriate question. That would be like something like asking a dog groomer if they like get dirty with the dogs. Like, no,
Right,
guys,
exactly.
no, no.
On the other upside, though, I do get a nice little chunk of people that will say that it's like the gothest profession ever, which definitely fits my aesthetic. So I do appreciate those comments. Always keep saying that.
Yeah, for all those out there who can't see Red behind the mic, they are definitely one of the gothest individuals out
Aw,
there.
thank you.
But yes, oftentimes that is like a weird, like desirable goth profession is to be like a mortician. Like I feel like a lot of goth girls like strive to kind of do that route, and then they figure out that they can't handle it.
Right. Yeah. I definitely meet people like at the few goth clubs that I've gone to. They're like, oh, yeah, I totally wanted to like get my license and stuff. And I'm like, but it's not
But
like,
you didn't.
yeah, right. Like you don't just start goth and get the job. Like you kind of get the job and get goth. Like I don't know. Like you can't be going in full like vampire outfit into your first like interview. Like unfortunately, so
Yeah, or even after, right? I'm pretty sure they don't let you wear like super heavy eyeliner and like, I don't know, all black to funerals,
oh,
right?
absolutely not. You would not. From what I look like in me penny loafers versus what I look like in my big stompy goth boots, like you would never know I was the same person. But unfortunately, it's not always super positive interactions that we have with everybody. And honestly, some of the more negative interactions I have are actually with the client families that I serve, which is sad in a lot of ways. It makes our job a little harder than it already is, but a lot of people distrust inherently funeral directors because so many people have this idea that we're being screwed by the funeral industry somehow. I mean, you go to Google, you type in anything about a funeral topic like funeral homes nearby, how much does a funeral cost, stuff like that, and like you get those clickbaity articles. It's like top 10 ways that you are being screwed at your grandma's funeral. Like
Hmm.
it's really sad stuff, and that always just upset me when I would be treated differently by client families because they have this preconceived notion in their head that, oh, this person is just here to steal from me or like take advantage of us. And like I actually had a lady sit across from me for an arrangement one time. It was like a big family in there, which is already hard enough to do with crowd control, like 8 people trying to talk at the same time. And like I'm going through the contract and she straight up snaps at me and is just like, okay, listen, I know what you're trying to do. I'm a salesperson, so I get it. And like I immediately saw red. I was so upset because all I ever try to do is help and honestly like save people money. Like I'm the person that knows how much like I could trim off the margins for you. So
Yeah.
like that really hurt to say. And I snapped back at her, which was not professional, but I was like, there's a very big difference between me and a salesperson, ma'am. Like,
Yeah, that's such a rude thing to
yeah,
say.
it really was. And it really hurt my feelings because I really genuinely try to do right by my families that I serve. Like every time, like without,
Yeah.
you know, without bar.
I do think that there is like a preconceived notion that there's like the funeral director is like this slimy sales guy who's trying to sell you like a $7,000 casket. I mean, I'm not going to say that every funeral director isn't this. Like, I'm sure there are bad guys out there, as there is in any profession.
Sure.
But generally, funeral directors are in the profession because they genuinely care about the deceased and the families, and they genuinely care about the families having a good experience and being able to come away from this like not in debt or whatever. I don't think that funeral directors are out there to like steal all your money. Like that is like preconceived notion that just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it really you exactly hit the nail on the head because yeah, of course, there's going to be a bad apple in the bunch, but
Yeah,
there's also a lot of laws in place to keep you from being taken advantage of
right.
in different respects from like the FTC and stuff like that. And honestly, like funeral directors either don't make commission at all or the things they make commission on are like flowers or something. Like I'm not making like 2 grand off a casket I sell you. That is not how that works. I get my salary and that's like it. So
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. You're like not making any commission based on like what sales you're doing. And you know, the traditional funeral home is very expensive, and that's just like the nature of the beast. But a lot of the times, funeral directors aren't like pushing you to spend more money. It's something that the family is deciding to do themselves.
absolutely. We basically take, our traditional model and I ask you all the questions I would ask a traditional family and you have the right to say no and I then would move on. That's really how it works. And all of the prices that we're giving you are reflective of the economy and the competitive nature of the industry. It's extremely competitive. But a lot of funeral homes will work with you and have like special programs themselves or know of like local programs that can help you. So, I mean, don't think that we're all bad. We really are here to help. We just also don't like being taken advantage of either because some people will then kind of flip that script on us too.
Right. And another thing that I think a lot of people don't know is that you can actually call and ask the funeral homes for their price list. So you can actually see everything priced out. And a lot of people kind of shop funeral homes this way. But I don't think this is a good thing to do. I think that you should pick a funeral home based on what you are comfortable with and, a funeral home that suits your community and has a good reputation. Because really, I feel like there's not a huge difference in what the price list is between funeral homes in a certain area.
And you're correct. That's very true. The big thing is that people are going to price shop mostly for direct cremation. That's where you'll see like the largest, change in cost. But if you're price shopping for like actual like traditional services or anything that involves like having like a visitation or funeral, the prices are going to be pretty much the same across the board. But that is a very good point to make. You are absolutely allowed to do that, and we do have to provide you with the pricing. If not immediately, we have to be able to get it to you in like a timely manner. So some places have it on websites, sometimes they don't. That's not been made into a rule just yet. So I've actually had a lot of people that had been price shopping that had said, "Oh, we'll call you back. We'll keep you in mind." And they've called back and said, "Everyone we talked to was awful to us. Even though they were cheaper, can you guys please take care of our mom?" So there's a lot to be said about, the heartwarming touch. You do kind of get what you pay for in some respects.
Exactly. You take care of your funeral directors and they're going to take care of you guys.
Absolutely.
On the other hand, really, I actually, because of the nature of my job as a medical examiner, going out there on, fresh scenes of death, like very, very, very raw kind of moment kind of things, I actually get a lot of families that are very relieved to see me. Like they are very happy that I am there.
What a nice change of pace.
I know, right? I think that is, the big difference between a funeral director and like a medical examiner and medical examiner investigator. Because I'm like the first person that they see, is unless it's a hospice death or an expected death at the hospital, something like this. But something very, very bad just happened, and people are often looking for guidance. Everyone's grieving process is different, but I think most people are thankful and receptive to what I have to say. They just want to know what happened, and they want to know if their loved one suffered. And that's like the two biggest things that people ask, I think. And, generally I can tell them that, not with so much certainty, but I can kind of ease their minds. I think generally, yeah, people are happy to see me. People are happy I'm there. I think there is like a misconception that, the medical examiner can be like a politician. They can be bribed. They can be kind of looking out for themselves in terms of like, their cause of death declarations and stuff like this.
Sure.
I'm not sure about coroners because coroners are elected officials, like we talked about in our previous episodes. Medical examiners are completely different. They're actual doctors that take an oath. They're not just politicians sitting around writing on death certificates. So, like I said before, no one is perfect in every profession. But from what I see and from what I've experienced, medical examiners are very, very professional and very, very scientific. They are not going to sway their decision. They're not going to sway their cause of death diagnosis based on the political climate or based on what anyone says to them or like what needs to happen politically or, interpersonally with families. So I think that's what I kind of like working in a medical examiner's office. It's very like, this is what happened. And even if you think it's something else, like I can't say that it was, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually always appreciated that about medical examiners and like coroners, some coroners, because a lot of the time we rely on you to fix things, especially when doctors are like refusing to sign or put like a really like inaccurate diagnosis or the family's unhappy with it. Like we often rely heavily on medical examiners to come in and kind of clean house and give us exactly the answers that we need.
Yeah, so I think in general families are have a really good relationship with a medical examiner, which I think goes a long way. There are some other people on death scenes usually that I do see that are also very happy to see me, but in a sort of different way. I'm talking about cops, I'm talking about detectives, people whose job it is to deal with death, but they did not necessarily sign up for that part of the job. You have no idea how many cops and detectives I've dealt with that it's been a decomposing body or something, really gruesome body parts everywhere. And they are just like so happy when we roll up and start like collecting pieces of skull. Like they don't have to do it. Like they are just so jazzed to see us sometimes.
There's this, I don't remember what it's from, but it's based on like a noir detective. It's like, oh, Detective Johnson, there's a puddle of blood in the hallway. And he's like, gross, clean it up.
That's literally exactly what it's like. That's so funny. I've never heard of that before. But yeah, because we show up and they're like, oh yeah, there's a dead guy in the bedroom. I don't know. He's really stinky. And we're like, yeah, we got it. But yeah, I think that's kind of fun going on scene and having that kind of interaction with the cops too, because I know a lot of people don't deal with cops in very positive ways all the time. So being able to see that kind of side of them where they're like, ew, I don't want to touch that. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like for like my interactions through work, I mean, of course I see like priests and casket salesmen and all that kind of stuff, but it ends up being the same interaction, whether it's them or just like coworkers of mine. I always get labeled as like the punky, like know nothing young girl on scene, which sucks because I don't know. I mean, I'm 26 now and I've been doing this for way too long already, and it just,
I know, I feel like, yeah, you have so much experience, but I think there is like this, especially because you're a female, like there's this like, oh, like leave it to the men kind of mentality.
right, exactly. The amount of times that I've showed up to a hospital to do a transfer like by myself and the security guard's like, oh, they just sent you, huh? And it's like, yes, they did actually just send me. Get out of my way.
And then you like rip a 250-pound body off of a hospital bed onto your cot.
Right. But yeah, I think it drives me out of spite, if anything. Makes me work harder.
Absolutely. So yeah, as you guys can see, we have very different interactions with very different people across the board. But no matter what the interaction is, I still love my job and I still love talking about my job. And I feel like that goes with most people that deal with death. So if you ever meet someone, just remember to be respectful. Number one, don't make any weird jokes about doing something with the corpse. That's very inappropriate. So no, don't do that. But I think most people are very open to talking about the death industry because it isn't something that people talk about often. And I love talking about death. I could talk about it all day long. I'm doing this podcast for you. That's how much I love it. So.
Right, exactly. I feel very similarly. Yeah, I would rather wade through those awful puns and weird comments so I can actually get to talk to the people that really care about what we do and are really interested in it too.
Absolutely. And I think when you get right down to it, our job is just another job. job. Of course, we have a specialization in what we do, but we're really just people going to our job every day. It's really nothing to be afraid of.
Right, exactly. But that's going to be it for this week on MortMic. We'd really love to connect with you guys on our socials, so you can like, follow, and subscribe to us on our Facebook, our Twitter, and our YouTube at MortMic Podcast. That's MortMicPodcast. And it would mean a lot to hear your feedback too. So tell us about your weird jobs and the weird comments people make with you in a comment, or you can even drop us a rating on whatever podcast hosting site you use. If you have any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear about or burning questions you might have about death, shoot us an email at mortmicpodcast@gmail.com.
And I just wanted to wish everyone a happy holiday. I've finally convinced my family to call this day something a little less oppressive, maybe Family Community Day. But I just wanted to take the time to be thankful and thank everyone that's helped us on our journey. I want to thank Macklin, who gave us this beautiful art that we use on all of our sites. I'm thanking Marcin, who's responsible for this bangin' music that we play every episode. You can check out his Bandcamp at marcinmusic.bandcamp.com. I want to thank my friend Dan for helping me learn how to edit, learn what sound is and what you need to be aware of, because I really had no idea what I was doing during our first episode editing that. I want to thank everyone who's commented and everyone who's liked our page and supported us through this journey. Keep commenting and keep giving us your opinions on death and what you want us to talk about. And I also, of course, want to thank our friends and family. You guys are awesome. You've always supported us. We love you.
And be sure to tune in every other week on Thursdays for more casual discussions on death. Thanks so much for listening. It's been MortMic.
Bye.
Bye.